the Department of Justice, we often talk about the importance of the rule of law. Adherence to the rule of law is critical to our democracy and one of the bedrock principles on which this nation was founded. Paraphrasing President Theodore Roosevelt, no person is above the law, no person is beneath it. This principle is essential to our democracy and part of what makes justice what it is in our country. Our system of justice cannot work if people in positions of power flout the law and abuse their positions of trust. Because of this, over the past several years, my office has investigated and prosecuted corruption wherever and whenever we use numbers. At the federal, state, and local levels, whether politicians, law enforcement, or other public officials, and whatever the political party. Our system of justice would mean very little if those with power, those with resources, could ignore the rule of law. There must be accountability for those who betray trust. This is why today's sentence of Mark Ridley-Thomas is so important. Mr. Ridley-Thomas was an immensely powerful politician who chose to violate the law to benefit his son rather than the public good. The defendant leveraged his political clout, his ability to deliver taxpayer dollars to get a USC dean to deliver personal benefits to his son, those including prestigious titles, an advanced degree, a paid position as a USC professor, and a mechanism for funneling $100,000 to the nonprofit run by his son. As the trial demonstrated, the defendant treated county business as his personal garbage. As a result of that conduct, he's now been sentenced to 42 months in prison, a fine of $30,000, and 3 years probation. And I want to highlight what the court stated this morning, which is that this was not a victimless crime. There were victims of this crime, not just the public, but also USC and United Way charities. This type of behavior by high-ranking elected officials will not be tolerated. We, the people, the constituents, the community that the defendant was elected to serve, deserve much better. The sentence imposed today shows that the law has meaning, and it gives notice to all public officials who would consider violating their sacred trust that there will be consequences. Public corruption will not be tolerated. This prosecution, together with the many other prosecutions of corruption that my office has handled in the past several years, involving politicians, law enforcement officials, and other public officials, send a clear message. The rule of law matters. No one, regardless of his or her power, position, or resources, stands above the law. Thank you. Now you will hear the Assistant Director in Charge, Don Alford, the other.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Mr. Thomas was elected to serve the people of Los Angeles, but instead, his actions served his own interests and his family. By deceiving others, he sought to legitimize his son's position and shield him from scrutiny. In addition, Mr. Thomas' lengthy tenure in government enabled him to influence others to facilitate his corrupt scheme. Those self-interests took precedence over the best interests of the people of Los Angeles County who relied on his judgment to improve their quality of life. I'm proud of the hard work of the agents and prosecutors who built this case and brought it to today's successful outcome. The FBI and our partners, the United States Attorney's Office, will continuously work to target corruption that erodes trust in government so the people of Los Angeles can have faith in their elected officials.
Do we have any Spanish language media? Yes? La corrupción es el veneno de la democracia. Cuando un político actúa de forma corrupta, nuestro pueblo pierde. Nosotros merecemos limón. La corrupción no es tolerable en nuestra sociedad. La sentencia que anunciamos hoy al acusado Mark Ridley-Thomas es muy importante. El señor Ridley-Thomas fue un político muy poderoso, en esta ciudad, en este condado, en este estado. Pero aunque tenía ese poder, todavía tenía que cumplir con la ley. Esto no hizo. El jurado concluyó que él había puesto sus intereses personales sobre los intereses del público. Con esta sentencia mandamos un mensaje muy importante. Y es un mensaje a todos los políticos, los oficiales y toda la comunidad. Cada persona, independientemente de sus recursos, su poder, su posición, tiene que respetar la ley. Muchas gracias.
Now take any questions?
Mr. Estrada, what do you make of the judge's decision in your example of other corruption and lobbyists was completely dismissed by the judge?
It wasn't completely dismissed.
Well, I don't completely agree with that characterization.
It's not true.
The court did say that the other conduct was a factor into the ultimate sentence. We appreciate that. We certainly think there was more than enough on the record to justify the sentence that was imposed, including the year-long course of conduct that this defendant carried out to engage in corruption. Sir?
If time served and legal accommodations, how much actual time do you anticipate this to be in prison?
I don't have a calculator in terms of the time in prison. We do have 42 months incarceration imposed. It's something we expected to serve the majority of that time.
I thought it was interesting that the judge said when you kind of walked through the original complaint, said that you started with makes some nods, used the pushing, used the term, pushes and shoves as you take the complaint. But she acknowledged there was this progression and that it was at the direction of Mark Ridley-Thomas.
Absolutely. What we saw here is an individual who, as I said, had an enormous amount of political power and used that power to benefit himself personally. And when he did that, he violated the law, and that's not tolerable in our society. So,
I know, but
You asked
you guys
for
are
6 years, you got less than that. Is that a disappointment at all?
the ultimate sentence is in the hands of the court. I respect the court's function. We as an office respect the court's function. We did ask for a lengthier sentence, but the court went through numerous factors, numerous reasons that the court considered to arrive at 42 months. I do think that the 42-month sentence sends that clear message that no one, regardless of what power you have in our society, whether wealth or political power, is above the law.
So is 42 months enough of a sense to be terms?
I certainly believe, and our office stands by a custodial sentence of 42 months, sends that message to the public that no one's above the law.
What do you take? We've had so many people indicted, public officials lately, including the Department of Water and Power. What is your take on this? It just seems abnormal for a city to have this many public officials indicted.
I can't comment on whether it's abnormal or not. What I will say is that my office, the FBI, will pursue corruption aggressively where we find it. As I said, that's regardless of whether it's federal, state, or local, regardless of what type of public official you are. There have been many cases against law enforcement officials, against other public officials, and it's regardless of political party. We bring these cases where the facts show they're appropriate.
What's your take on it, personally?
Oh, God.
I can't comment beyond what I said.
Does it surprise you that City Hall hasn't done more to, crack down on this kind of public corruption?
I can't comment on that. What I will say is where we find corruption, we believe it's chargeable, or we think it violates federal law, we will investigate it, and if appropriate, bring charges.
What is your reaction to his claim?
I didn't hear that first part.
Expect an appeal.
We do expect the defendant to appeal.
The judge has said that some of Dr. Ridley-Thomas's arguments from his lawyers were not based in fact, and she also mentioned that there's some constituents who refuse to accept the outcome of the trial. Do you have anything to say to people here, and also journalists who've been writing stories kind of contributing to that?
What I think is important to keep in mind is that this sentence imposed today is part of numerous different sentences imposed on public officials at every level, whether we're talking about the halls of Congress, whether we're talking about City Hall, whether we're talking about other public officials that this office has pursued. And we pursue them for one reason, and that's when individuals violate their sacred oath and breach the public trust.
So I know at one point while Mr. Ridley-Thomas was reading his statement today, he said the case exists in between legal and illegal conduct. What is your reaction to that?
My reaction is that we had a jury trial in this case, and that jury heard all the evidence and determined that there were violations of federal law, and that's the conclusion of the jury, and that's what the court factored in determining the appropriate sentencing.
Will you seek to have have him start serving his sentence? In other words, will you argue that he remain in jail during the appeal, or that he surrender and remain in jail?
My understanding is that the defendant ordered
So will you say that will you argue that he go to jail during the appeal?
God, these people have no idea.
You know, sir, throughout this, we heard that Mr. Ridley-Thomas had not accepted responsibility for that. Why, in your mind, and what kind of behavior are you seeing that indicates that at this point in time he still has yet to accept responsibility?
Well, in terms of acceptance of responsibility, certainly he chose to go to trial with the charges against him. Certainly he continued to seek a very aberrant sentence, I would say, a completely probationary sentence, notwithstanding what is called for normally in these types of cases, notwithstanding what the sentencing guidelines call for a custodial sentence. And that for us demonstrates a lack of accounting for responsibility. But I do think what's important is that the message sent by the court today, by imposing a 42-month sentence, which we do think is a sentence, it shows that regardless of what type of power one has, there will be consequences when you engage in corruption.
Thank you very much. I'm here for further questions.